Hi everyone, it's Lennon, and today we're going to be talking about the harvest. Now, I know that the harvest is like a generalized term for the fall season, basically, in my opinion, because of where I live. The harvest tends to be months long, right? And for me, in my area, this first harvest, like right around Lammas, is berries. So all the berries are in full swoop right now, and you can go and pick them, and it's just lovely. The blackberries are killer here. So I did a video, or I think it was my last video, about back to school. This is actually, the children are going back to school here in the US. A lot of them are virtual learning, which means they'll do it online instead of going in school. It's just going to be a big change. So I've been doing a lot of spells and rituals about said change and how we can move forward into the unknown when certain things come up in our lives, especially like adults are us. Change happens, and because we've already gone through certain changes that we weren't expecting, that in and of itself is expectable, because we're expecting things to just kind of go topsy-turvy. And I'm one of those people that doesn't mind change. If something happens, I'm just more, let's let the water fall where it may, and we'll go from there. But in terms of kids and especially going back to school, there is a lot of uncertainty that I think that's what people fear the most. And I'm going to talk more on this when we get into like death. I want to have some talks about death, but I'm going to do that later on in the year when I start my crone time and when I start my death devotion. That's what I do kind of like midwinter. And I wanted to do some talks on the channel about that as well. But that's later on. And it's about the fear of death being just the fear of uncertainty. And with kids, it's been really difficult. I've learned that my kids take change pretty well. They're pretty adaptable. But then in times of complete uncertainty, not having any facts, I have one child that needs the facts. They need all the information handed to them before they make a decision. And I love that about them. They're more kind of like, they need all the steps of the scientific method done before they say yes or no. And my other one is a lot like me. He's just free flow. But in this uncertain time and in this harvest time, I start thinking about things that are certain, and talking to my kids about things that move in cycles, and how the earth moves in cycles, and how, yes, the times we're in may be uncertain, and we might not know what tomorrow is, and we might not know how school's going to go, and we might not know this, and this, but here's some things that we do know. And that's really helped with having the dialogue with the children and with myself, because I get into moments where in the uncertainty, it's not so much that I care that things are uncertain or that they're changing. It's more so that I'm anxious for the whole of the household as like the matriarch here. And as a parent, and the way the dynamic of my household works, I feel like I shoulder a lot of the things that my family has anxieties about. I shoulder a lot of that. And so in these uncertain times that we're in now, I feel anxious about the other people in my life being anxious, not necessarily my own anxieties. And so that's kind of been where my head's been at. But having the dialogue with my children about these uncertain times, and then the cycles of life, the seasons of the earth in general. So I have been opening up the dialogue, but this, like I'll say around Lammas, I don't really do anything for Lammas except for a couple of things that we'll go over in a second. This was just like an all over first harvest chat. In this season that we're about to go into, I hate summer. I hate it. I am a winter baby. So in the severe heat that my area has been in the last, I'll say 3 to 4 months, I haven't really gotten any soul cleansing, and I get that in the winter. And this summer particularly has been really rough on us because the humidity where I live has been like worse than I've seen it in the last 5 years. So it's been really humid and it's hard to breathe. And we had a sandstorm. I think it was moved up from South America. Anyway, there was a sandstorm that came up and we got hit with it too. So there was weeks that we couldn't even go outside because the air was really bad. And one of my kids has asthma, so we have to take that into account as well. But anyway, this first harvest reminds me that summer's almost over. Now, summer's not over, technically, in terms of weather. It's still 100 degrees outside, but it reminds me that it's coming. It reminds me that the heat is subsiding, and I very much look at Lammas for me as the great transition back into my soul cleanse time, back into my happiest time is on the cusp of winter, that fall, and you can smell the winter in the air. That's my happiest time. And so when I've been suffering and with the air quality being really, really bad here the last couple of months because it's been so hot, and I do go out sometimes when I just need it. I have to ground. The way I ground is barefoot. I'm always barefoot. And so anyway, I'm rambling. I feel like right here at this time of the year around Lammas, so it's like the beginning of August for us here, I can feel the change in the air. This like whole week I've been feeling the shift. It's like something is settling, the tectonic plates are settling almost, and I can feel that in my soul. And so I do tend to do a couple of things around this week. I happen to be I feel like we were really, really lucky because the full moons this whole year have been pretty much really well coinciding with the Sabbats, and I just, oh my God, I love that. Like Samhain has a full moon this year, like I just cannot wait. But we had a full moon. When I'll be posting this, it was like a few days prior to me posting this video, but I was like, okay, so there was Lammas. It's like the first is night, so it's August Eve, right? And that's when I kind of celebrate it, as the night before or the day before, doing all my preparations. And then the next day I'll do some actual like abundance spells and actual rituals like on the day. And then the following day after that was the full. I danced all night, almost all night long that night. The full moon felt so it was the full moon in Aquarius. I'm an Aquarius. So I felt an extreme high. It was a very intense, almost like it was almost emotion, but not really. It wasn't really emotion. It was more of a mental thing. And I guess that makes sense with Aquarius being an air sign. But I had so much ambition that day. I was going to clean up the house because I tend to do like a Lammas, it's kind of like a Lammas spring cleaning. The turning of the season, you just flush out all that summer, those summer vibes, and get ready for the new cycles to, the new spinning of the wheel, basically, is how I take it. And that day I was painting and I was drawing, and I was barefoot all day. I did spend a lot of time outside, even though I was mostly out there by myself. Because the air quality was bad that day. But I was out there, I was drinking lots of water. Because this is like a harvest festival, and it's not exactly harvest vegetables like what we see at like near Thanksgiving, okay? I tend to go more grain berry into the summer flowers like Queen Anne's lace. Those are the types of things I have out that remind me of the turning of the season, like the end of summer things that you love because it's like the last of summer. It's the last of the heat going into those berries. It's the last of that Queen Anne's lace blooming, and you pick it because you never know if it's going to come back up. And that's the magic of this season, this turn for me, this Sabbath. And I remember being outside most of the day, playing with my clay and painting and drawing. I had a couple of projects to do on my sketchbook that I was trying to finish up, not doing anything. And then that night, the moon cast such a glow on the yard. It's like a street lamp. That's kind of how it looks in my yard. It looks like a street lamp is just over the whole yard. And it just gives everything this nice blue silvery glow. That's like my favorite. It's like my favorite thing ever is the glow of the moon and what it looks like over the yard. And I just remember dancing. And because we had cut the grass the previous weekend, my feet got so green. So I hope that that's not too gross for you guys to see, but I just wanted to share it because when I came back inside, I had no idea that my feet were pretty much stained. I had to scrub them. And it was so funny because it really reminded me the green of the feet and the grass and how I got it from dancing. It's like the earth stained my feet with its love, and I just felt so abundant in that moment, and it was just magical. And I want to post a video clip right here of my clay that I make. Now, I guess I'll leave the recipe below. Maybe I'll put it in a file, in a cutesy file for you, like I like to do, of just a generic recipe. Because Lammas is technically a harvest festival, I do like to make certain things with flour. And I made, like most people, like bread, something with yeast. This year, I decided to make this floury clay, and it's basically like Play-Doh. You cook it on the stove, and I made some of that, and then my kids ended up using all of that for their own project. So I thought, well, I want to make some altar tools for me. I decided to make another type of clay that's made pretty much out of cornstarch, and it's kind of like sculpey, almost like polymer clay. It's very smooth because you make it with lotion. And I'll leave both recipes down there for you, but I wanted to show a couple of things that I made that, I don't know, I wanted my intuition to come forth, right? I wanted some divine inspiration spark because of the moon. I wanted something to just be like, okay, this is what you need to make, and make it. Now, the good thing about this cornstarch clay is that it's air dried. So you can just leave it on a plate, and in a few days it'll be completely dry, and it should dry smooth, not cracked. And I can just like paint it or like rub it with some like charcoal, and it kind of sets, and it's just really nice. So I wanted to show, I made this. Now, I've always wanted a goddess, a handheld goddess that I could either leave out on the altar, but I can pick it up physically, and it's not too heavy. It sits in my hand very light, and I knew that if I made this clay, I would want to make a goddess. I do also like to make my own things because I'm crafty like that, and I think that getting my hands dirty, so to speak, is a powerful way for me to connect with whatever I'm doing. And so I made this. I made sure to keep it simple. I wanted breasts, and I wanted a vulva, and I kind of pinched the nose because I like my goddesses to have pointy nose, because it's kind of synonymous to me with like the bird goddess and of the ancient times, like the bird. This kind of reminds me of the bird statue, handheld statues, I guess you call them, relics that we see in like the ancient like Maria Gambuta's times. And so I really wanted it to be like that. and I really, really love it. What I'm gonna do is take some brown, probably brown acrylic, and put it on a paper towel and rub it all over, and then just like try to rub it dry so it kind of makes it look antique and old. And it'll, once it dries, it's not heavy, and it's flat on the back because I wanted it to lay flat and not all wonky on the altar table, but it's perfectly fits in my hands like this, and I can wrap my hand around it, and it's just kind of like a poppet almost. And I have a poppet as well. I have made, because I know how to sew, I've made a couple of poppets that look just like primitive dolls out of like felt or something like that. Anyway, over the years they tend to get like dog hair in them, and it's really hard to keep felt clean. That, you know, if it gets something on there, and with polyfill, which is like doll stuffing, I don't really know how to properly wash that like in the washing machine. So I leave all that alone. So I did, once I made the goddess, I had a whole bunch of clay left, and I was like, what am I gonna make now? And I made this, again, flat on the back so that it'll kind of lay flat on the altar table, but it's kind of like my very own poppet. It's very primitive. I wanted it to be androgynous because I do a lot of work with the creation story and hermaphrodites and stuff like that, so I really wanted it to just look plain, and I did want it to be handheld so I can hold it. And I just did 2 arms and 2 legs to signify the human in me, and that's it. And so when I do spells for myself, that I can hold this in my hand while I'm performing it, and it's just, it feels great in my hand. God. Now, I played around with a couple of other designs, but I made this Ouroboros. And I made, now this Mother Mary didn't turn out very well. Now I don't, when she comes to me, she doesn't call, it's not Mary, it's Sophia, because I'm very much like, I'm more of a Gnostic than a believer in the Christian faith, if that makes any sense. So Gnosticism, mysticism, really like system thinking, alchemy, those types of things. That's pretty much where like a lot of my belief lies. But I made this, and she's cloaked. I made her like a cloak. She doesn't wear a cloak. She just wears that head shawl, but it looks like a cloak. I put her flaming heart in the center of her chest and her halo, and around, you can see down here is a snake, and he's coiled around her and then goes up her spine to, I guess to me, that's like Kundalini, and that's the snake of Eve and the snake of knowledge, because I do very much feel like the snake is knowledge, like sacred knowledge, just like Sophia. And I think that that's what the serpent symbolizes in that particular story. I guess neo-paganism, the goddess right now is heavily pregnant, and it's just this ultra sun energy feeling in this holiday. And for me, it's all about germination, right? Because she's heavily pregnant, the goddess, I feel like that could symbolize germination. What am I germinating? And what has the first half of the year, because technically this would be like the middle of the year, right? So what in the first half of the year, let's look back all the way, and what have I gained? What has come to me in terms of abundance since then? And then being grateful for that. I have like a gratitude page this holiday or this festival devoted to all that has come to me since the beginning of this year. One other thing I forgot. One other thing that I love to do, and I already said it, was make bread, and I will leave a video clip of me trying my best to make herb bread. I have a whole bunch of herbs in my garden, and I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Herbs dry within a good 2 weeks, so I pick some of my edible herbs like my thyme and oregano, and some of my fennel, and put them up to dry. And it takes, like I said, about 3 weeks for them to get properly dry, and then I can cook with them. And that's what I made in the bread. And I just made like tiny little loaves, and each one of us had one the night of Lammas. And it turned out just fine, so I was pretty proud. So I'll leave a clip for that. One other thing, of course, we like tarot, right? For me, I don't really use spreads. I just kind of pick cards at random, figure out what my intuition is telling me. I may do a spread if I find a good one. Like sometimes people post a Lammas spread here or a Lunasa spread there, and I'll do that. But for the most part, I really like to look at actual cards. And in terms of tarot, for me, that's the Empress card. And I picked out this Shining Tribe. Actually, she looks a lot like my goddess, doesn't she? So this is actually based off of an actual statue from, way back that Rachel Pollack drew. I love that. There's so much balance here. Like the star up at the top, but then the two mountains, I think, and then either the two planets or like the two moons, I guess you would call it. That signifies cycles to me, but then the two mountains could be breasts, and then the river, of course, she sits on the river, like the river flows behind her, and then the trees, of course, to me, always mean abundance. And so this is a good card that either I have out on my altar, any Empress card. I just used this one this year because I've been loving using this deck. An Empress card either goes on my altar, or I really try to scry and sit with the whatever deck that I've been, that I chose to work with. It's been kind of eye-opening to journal about the Empress card lately. But this year, I picked two Empress cards. I picked the Shining Tribe and then the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. I've been loving working with this, the Greenwood Tarot and the Shining Tribe Tarot, these last, I'll say until, I've been working with these heavily since March, since COVID broke out. And I remember getting some really good readings with these three decks, just together or separately. But this is the Empress card in this deck. And I love this image because it does seem so abundant. I love the use of animals in this deck. There's a little hare down here. But the fact that she's not pregnant, but has the child already, to me that signified not like a pagan pregnancy. Kind of like, to me, in my opinion, the pregnancy in an Empress card is kind of like what we're dealing with in Lammas and Lunasa, is the goddess being heavily pregnant. And this is that time of year where the sun's energy is at its peak and stuff like that. And, the sun energy is still high, but it's like waning. And I love the idea that this isn't a pagan-esque Empress, but it's more of a Gaia-esque Empress. Like I said, not neo-paganism, but more so that this is the earth. And the Green Mother has all kinds of babies already. And they go through the cycle. Her babies as the mother, her babies, us, the animals, the trees, the plants, they go through cycles as well. And so this child here, to me, signifies all of her babies. All the animals that are on Earth right now, all of the humans that are on Earth right now are her babies. And that's what is great to me, to see the embodiment of us and all things divine from Mother Earth, nature made, signified in this little child. And the fact that they're green, this has been a real interesting card to have out for the last few days. I just love that she's green. And I do a lot of work with mythology in terms of journaling and in terms of trying to decipher. I love to decipher puzzles, and a lot of the mythology stories are similar to another mythology story. And then I say, okay, well, maybe why did they change that detail in this pantheon? And I really like to just dive with stuff like that. That's where my love of research goes. And so this I keep calling it a holiday, whatever you want to call it, a festival of Lammas, to me speaks Demeter. And so the last couple of days, I've also been studying up on Demeter, and not her and Persephone, but more of like her journey specifically. After Persephone's descent, where Demeter went, and like she went and basically adopted Musings, and I mean there was just so much about Demeter that has nothing to do with Persephone. She has her own, Demeter goes on her own journey, and so it's been kind of fun to dive into just her. And I love this deck for altar work. This is the Ancient Feminine Wisdom, and it's full of just like goddess and heroines, and I love having these as like altar cards. And this is a depiction of Demeter, and so I did like to dive with her being the mother, yes, but then her being her own individual, and how sometimes it's hard for me to battle that out myself, how to remain an individual, but then also be a mother. And I feel like it's important to still be an individual when you are a mother, because when you have empty nest syndrome, later on down the line, your kids move out and go to college or what have you, you still need to know what you like to do. You still need to know what you want to do as far as hobbies, or have some ambitions, travel, whatever. And I like to think about those things as well, how to be an individual. And so it's really interesting to look at Demeter as just an individual. I did want to use this Witchy Wednesday as like a harvest, a harvest ramble of what all I've been doing for, I'll say, the last 2 weeks. I baked bread, I made clay, I drew, I painted, I danced in the light of the full moon. So anyway, I hope that you come back, and I want to talk more, like I said, on death and like almost like hedonism, and we'll get more into that later on down the road. But I really did enjoy this holiday, this Lammas festival, and thinking about gratitude, abundance, and doing some spells for those things, and getting my hands dirty and my feet. So much love. Hope to see y'all again.